it's time for Balancing Act Day 2. Remember, Balancing Act is our lab about the nitrogen cycle. It will also have some other information as well, but we're going to be working on nitrogen cycle today. So, first, what is the title of this lab? You're thinking of these warm-up questions, and I'll answer them in a moment. Nitrogen moves through the 4 spheres. Name those 4 spheres. How much of the atmosphere is nitrogen? And why is nitrogen important for all living things? Try to answer those on your own. You can pause the video and come back. So we had a snow day. That was very exciting, and we asked people in class to talk about their snow day. What is the title of our lab? These are our warm-up questions, and you are getting this from your packet. Your packet is available as a PDF in Day 1 in Schoology if you need to look back and find it. The title of the lab is Causes and Effects of Changes in the Nitrogen Cycle, and it's also called the Balancing Act, but you can see we're going to be talking about the nitrogen cycle. All right, just like carbon, nitrogen moves through the 4 spheres. So what are those 4 spheres? They're the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the geosphere, and the biosphere. When you look at this particular image, you'll notice that instead of geosphere, it says lithosphere. So lithos just means stone, and geo means earth. So depending on what resources you're using, you might see lithosphere instead of geosphere. But we have our geosphere or lithosphere, we have the atmosphere, we have the biosphere, and we have the hydrosphere. Nitrogen can be in all 4 of those spheres, just like carbon can be in all 4 of those spheres. And nitrogen can move around from one to the other. How much of our atmosphere is nitrogen? 78% nitrogen gas. I would prefer that you use 78%. It's true, it is about 80%, but please just use 78%. Okay, 78% of our atmosphere is made of nitrogen, 21% is oxygen, right? And then we have other stuff. So remember that we are breathing in this air. When we breathe in the air, we are able in our bodies to use the oxygen. And so we will breathe this air in and get nitrogen and oxygen and some other stuff. We can use the oxygen in our circulatory system, and then when we breathe out, we are breathing out a bunch of nitrogen that we didn't even use because we couldn't, and carbon dioxide. So we pulled the oxygen from oxygen gas and turned it into carbon dioxide. All right, nitrogen is important because it is needed in order for us to make DNA and proteins. DNA and proteins. All right, so at the beginning of this class, I had students go back into that Pear Deck from Day 1, and I asked everybody to use the Pear Deck to help answer our notes pages in our packet. Okay, so on the packet, we had pages 4 and 5. You're going to see there are blanks for you to fill in. You could fill those directly from the Pear Deck. All right. I gave 8 minutes to work on this in class. I'm not giving 8 minutes while you're watching the video, but you can certainly pause it. So if you look in your notes, this was actually black and white. It was not in color, but you had an image of the nitrogen cycle and you had some questions to answer. See how this says what is nitrogen and then it says slide 1 in parentheses? That's because you could probably find the answer to that question on slide 1 in your Pear Deck. All right, so take a moment, you can pause the video, take a moment to see if you can fill in pages 4 and 5, and then you can come back and check your work. All right, the 4 forms of nitrogen in the nitrogen cycle, 4 basic forms that we're going to talk about. We have nitrogen gas that's in the atmosphere. We have ammonia or ammonium that we're sort of lumping together. That's when you have a nitrogen and you have hydrogens connected to it. So we have 3 hydrogens, nitrogen and 3 hydrogens is ammonia, nitrogen and 4 hydrogens is ammonium. Okay, we also have nitrites, that's NO2. And the minus here and the plus here has to do with the number of electrons that are involved. So if you remember back, hopefully you can remember some of this from 6th grade science. When we talk about an atom, it has protons and neutrons that are most of its weight. And then we also have electrons. Protons have a positive charge and electrons have a negative charge. And a lot of times we're just going to have equal protons and electrons so that the overall charge is neutral or there's no charge. Okay. And then, of course, neutrons just add extra material and weight, but they are neither positive nor negative. So sometimes we'll focus on these. We'll have the positives and negatives, but we're not really going to talk about it a whole lot. That's just what they have to do with. They have to do with electrons and protons and positive charge and negative charge. All right. So again, we have 4 forms of nitrogen. We have nitrogen gas, N2. We have ammonia or ammonium. That's nitrogen with hydrogens. And then we have a nitrite, which is NO2. And our 4th form is nitrate, NO3. This is what we're trying to get to because this is what our plants really like to use. Okay, so if you notice again on your notes, you can generally see which slide in the Pear Deck you would go to help find your information. So you want to think about what is nitrogen. Hopefully you've answered it on your page. Nitrogen is an element. It is a gas, N2, 2 nitrogens bonded together. That's a gas. It's in the atmosphere. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen. It's mostly nitrogen. Question 2, what is the scientific symbol for nitrogen? That was on slide 3. It showed you part of the periodic table. Just the letter N. Name 3 places where nitrogen can be found. If you were in the Pear Deck and you clicked, you would have read and found lots of places that listed nitrogen. So you can get it in the atmosphere, gases from volcanoes, stars or meteorites or things like that, rainwater and soil and other types of water as well. We have lots of places that we have nitrogen. And when we look at NO2, that is the chemical formula for a nitrite, NO2. So there is one atom of nitrogen there, 1 right there. And if you look, O2, that 2 is telling you have 2 O's. So we have 2 oxygen atoms, right? This compound has nitrogen and oxygen. And we see that 1 molecule of nitrite has 1 nitrogen atom and 2 oxygen atoms. Okay, nitrogen is needed for our bodies to make proteins and also an important building block of, you look on slide 9 and you hopefully see that it's DNA. All right, looking at question 6 or prompt 6, it says nitrogen comes in many forms. The forms are the different types of molecules. So you're going to learn about the form. Sometimes you'll know just by the words, but you can also definitely see the form when you look at the chemical formula. All right, so we're going to use slide 10 on the Pear Deck to help fill this in. What is N2? If this is our chemical formula for it, N2 is going to be nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas is fine. It's not hurting us, but we can't actually use it. So another way that we can see nitrogen is in ammonium or ammonia. Ammonium right here, NH4 plus ammonium. It's actually harmful generally to humans. And so every once in a while, some forms of ammonia or ammonium can be used by plants. But we generally think of ammonium as being harmful. Nitrites. See how there's an I and an I? Lots of I's. I is for icky. It's a silly way that might help you remember. Nitrites are icky. NO2 is the formula. So if you're just seeing NO2 or NO2 minus, you know that that's nitrites if you can remember that. Nitrites are icky. Look at all those I's. On the other hand, NO3, it's different, right? NO3, it is a nitrate. So we have an A. If we have that A, it's A-OK. And that's the good form of nitrogen that our plants can use. Number 7 says true or false. We get the nitrogen we need by breathing in nitrogen gas from the atmosphere. We do breathe in nitrogen gas from the atmosphere, but we breathe it right back out again. We can't use it. We can't break it up ourselves. So this is false. We do not get the nitrogen we need by breathing. Number 8, the form of nitrogen that is good, that is A-OK. It's good and plants can absorb it and use it. That type of nitrogen, that form of nitrogen is a nitrate. And two things that can fix the nitrogen, change it from being triple bonded nitrogen gas or ammonium, which is toxic form for us, or nitrites are also icky. The thing that can fix it and make it nitrates, that would be lightning and bacteria. Okay, lightning and bacteria can fix nitrogen gas or other forms of nitrogen and make them into forms that we can use. And what changes the nitrogen gas, that N2 in the atmosphere, into ammonium in the soil? It's bacteria. Remember, bacteria are the workhorses of this cycle. They do lots and lots of work for us. All right, so you do really need to understand that nitrogen is needed by all living things. But before we can use it, it has to be fixed or changed, right? It's broken to us right here when it's N and N stuck together. But if we can fix it, we can use it. So we're going to do nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is a chemical reaction. So we're putting reactants in. We are exposing those reactants to energy, and we are yielding products that we're looking for. Okay, so our chemical reaction is going to have as a reactant nitrogen gas, N2, probably, and we will have some bacteria, or we will have some lightning, and we will yield an O3 eventually. So we could write out a whole chemical equation if we wanted to. Just know that we have products, we have reactants going in, they are exposed to energy, and then we have products coming out. The ways we can do this in the air or in the soil. In the air, it's done by lightning, and in the soil, the fixation process is done by bacteria. Also, on a side note, humans can fix nitrogen because we have plants that we can make fertilizer in. All right, so looking at some more questions that you're going to answer. Blank changes toxic ammonium into icky nitrates. Well, it's bacteria, because bacteria is really doing most of this work. So most of the time, that's going to be your answer. What is the process that turns something into nitrites? That's nitrification. It's already broken apart. It's not N2 together. So it's already been fixed, and now it's going through nitrification so that it is no longer N connected to H's. Now it is N connected to O's. All right, now we've got those icky nitrites, NO2. So how can we change those into good nitrates? It's bacteria again. Yay, bacteria. Okay, once that nitrogen is fixed, eventually into nitrates, it started out as N2. So it'll be fixed by lightning immediately into NO3, or by bacteria, where it would become ammonium and then nitrite and then nitrate. Once it's fixed and ready, and it's nitrates as the form, the nitrates can be absorbed and used by plants. Okay, the process is called assimilation. That's the word that means the plants are using those nitrates. Animals get their nitrogen that they need so that they can build proteins and DNA by eating plants or eating animals that ate plants. For us, it's also known as assimilation, okay? Eating or assimilation. All right, now, living things die eventually. So when living things do die, decomposers break them down and release which form of nitrogen back into the soil? It's going to be ammonium. Okay, so there is nitrogen in your body or in an animal's body or in a plant. When that plant dies or when that animal dies and it is decomposed, those decomposers pull nitrogen out just like they could pull carbon out, right? And that ammonium, the nitrogen in the form of ammonium, gets into the soil. Okay, the process is called ammonification. If you're turning something into an ammonia type product, it's called ammonification. Which organisms can change those nitrates back into nitrogen gas? So that is the end of the cycle, and it's bacteria again. We have denitrifying bacteria, denitrification. They're going to take those nitrates and pull the nitrogens away from the nitrate and leave oxygen somewhere and put nitrogens together. Denitrification. All right, so here's our nitrogen cycle. One last time. Sorry, you could pause on it if you'd like to. Okay, we had a brain break in class. We did some breathe in and breathe out stuff. And then we explored the nitrogen cycle in more detail. Okay, remember that nitrogen is essential to life, essential because it's a building block of proteins and DNA. So there's basically 5 steps in this whole cycle. So steps, these are the words or phrases that describe what's happening. And forms of nitrogen, that's going to be the chemical formula that tells you what a molecule looks like. Okay, so the steps, these are the steps over here. Nitrogen fixation, that is when we take N2 and turn it into a form of nitrogen that we might be able to use. We need to fix it first. We need to break those 2 nitrogens apart so that we can start to put them into a form that we can use. Plants can't just use N2 gas. They can't just use that nitrogen gas, nor can animals. It has to be fixed or changed or transformed first. During nitrogen fixation, the bacteria transform that gas into NH4 or ammonium. Okay. So we also have decomposers that can turn dead plants and animals into ammonium. Bacteria transform ammonia or ammonium into nitrates. So instead of being N with hydrogens, it's going to be N with oxygens. Nitrates are the form of nitrogen that plants can absorb. Okay, so we change from ammonium to nitrites first and then to nitrates. It's bacteria doing that, and sometimes it's a 2-step process. Some bacteria actually will convert those nitrates from the soil back into nitrogen gas, which gets released back into the atmosphere. All right, so the word assimilation here, have I been reading the top words? Sorry, I don't know if I said this. Denitrification is the word that we use to describe when we pull nitrogen from nitrates and allow it to go bond with other nitrogens and make nitrogen gas. That's denitrification. Assimilation is the word that means that an organism is using those nitrogen atoms through whatever form they're using them. So our plants are going to assimilate. They're going to absorb those nitrates. The process by which the plants absorb that ammonia or the nitrates through their roots so that they can make proteins is called assimilation. Animals get their nitrates by eating plants. All right, remember, we have largely been talking about terrestrial situations, but we have nitrogen cycle happening in the water as well, so just make sure that you remember it happens in both places. Okay, we've mostly been talking about nitrogen cycle on land. Just remember, nitrogen and nitrogen compounds can also dissolve in the water and run off into bodies of water. All right, so some of the classes got through this information and some did not on this day. So if you didn't get through it during class, you can certainly look at it now. We tested these ecosystems early on in the school year, and we tested for abiotic factors. Do you remember what we tested for? One thing was nitrites. We tested for water clarity and temperature. We tested for dissolved oxygen and pH. So remember, when we were looking at our model ecosystems, we did not want there to be any nitrites. We were looking for very, very low numbers of nitrites. All right. Nitrogen cycle happens in aquatic systems as well, and it's roughly circular, although sometimes you can bounce back and forth a little bit. So denitrifying bacteria convert a nitrate, which is NO3, back into nitrogen gas, which is N2. and then it re-enters the atmosphere. All right, so this was a big part of class. I asked everybody to use your packet, and I'll show you a little bit about how you're going to do this. And you're going to hop a ride with a nitrogen atom. You are going to pretend to be a nitrogen atom and go step by step to see what happens to you as a nitrogen atom. It's really similar to when you pretended to be a carbon atom. And in the carbon atom, we walked around the classroom and you went back and forth between atmosphere and water and maybe plants and maybe animals. And you just kind of went all around back and forth as a carbon atom in our other lab. In this lab, you're going to be moving back and forth as a nitrogen atom. Okay, so you're going to be using Schoology, and you're going to be using your notes. Everyone is starting in the atmosphere, so you want to go ahead and write the word atmosphere in your notes on this page that says natural nitrogen atom travel log. Okay, there is another page in your packet that says human nitrogen atom travel log, but we're not going to do that one just yet. Everyone is beginning as atmosphere, so write atmosphere. And we're going to be filling in information on your sheet. Your sheet, I believe, has what happened, and then maybe what form of nitrogen, and then what location did you move to. So it might be in a different order on your papers. All right, as you go through this simulation, you're going to record what happened, where did you get moved to, and what form of nitrogen were you. Okay, so you're going to be using Schoology. This is Balancing Act Day 2, and it's a nitrogen cycle simulation in Day 2. Okay, once you're in there, it's going to have you click on something to roll dice, and you'll click on that. You actually only need one die, so you can change the number from 2 to 1. Once you figure out what number you need, you're going to click on the number in your simulation, and it's going to be down at the bottom of the page. And when you click on your number, it will tell you where to go, and then it will tell you what to do. You're going to read the data when you are in these slides, and you're going to record information on your travel log. And just keep going till this whole page is filled up. Okay, you just finished this page, not the other one. All right, we're going to do a little bit of an example, and that means I need to be in our slides. Our notes. All right, so you're in your notes packet. This is what the notes packet looks like roughly. You're in your notes packet and you are going to scroll. You should read this article at some point when you have a minute. We're going to scroll along. Okay, that was our nitrogen cycle page, and so you've been filling in that page. And here's our travel log. Okay, so it's pages 6 and 7, I'm pretty sure. You want to make sure you're on the natural nitrogen atom travel log, and view, rotate clockwise. Okay, if I'm looking at this page, my starting point is atmosphere. You're writing atmosphere right here where my cursor is moving. Okay, and then you're going to write what happened. So describe what happened to you. Now, what form of nitrogen are you? And where did you end up moving to? You know, if you're starting in the atmosphere, you are nitrogen in the form of nitrogen gas, N2. Okay, so you are going to click on, not that. You're going to click in Schoology. Let me get us there. I'm in Schoology. Schoology Day 2 for Balancing Act. So you're going to click on this link that says Day 2 Virtual Nitrogen Cycle, and that's what you're going to be using so that you can fill in your paper notes. Okay, I'm going to do this like a slideshow because that's how I like to do it. All right, and it says we're all starting in the atmosphere as nitrogen gas. Go ahead and roll to see where you travel next. So I'm going to roll right there where it says bright blue roll. Now I only need one die, so I'm going to change this to 1. Okay, roll dice. And I got a 4. So I'm going to go back to my slides. I got a 4. So it says click on the number you rolled. Well, I rolled a number 4. There's number 4. Okay, I was starting out in the atmosphere as nitrogen gas. Now I'm in the soil. I am soil, right? So let's see what happened. It says I was partially fixed by bacteria. So I was fixed. Okay, I was fixed by bacteria and I ended up in the soil. What is my form? My form now in the soil is ammonia, NH3. So these are the three pieces of information you're going to put in your, no, I don't know where my page is, in your notes that are here. Okay, so what happened? Well, you are now moved to soil. You are NH3, I believe it was ammonia. And what happened? You were fixed, right? Okay. Please go through and do that whole page, just that one side. You're not actually going to do the human causes yet. And then we will talk about what happens next time. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Click back in to see day 2.